One of the biggest struggles I see in ADHD women is getting themselves to do the things that they know would help their ADHD, things I call ADHD care. Given the busyness most women, especially ADHD women, experience, plus the way our brains are wired, this makes sense. It truly can be hard to get ourselves to do stuff, and it's possible. In this episode, we'll explore the challenges of getting yourself to do your ADHD care consistently, what ADHD care really is and how it shifts, as well as how to get yourself to do it. I'll even share a tool I've only ever shared in my paid programs for you to help yourself do this. So, if you've been struggling to do things that would actually help reduce the struggle with your ADHD, then this episode is for you. Be sure to listen. Welcome to the Self Loved ADHD Woman's Way podcast. I'm your host, Jen Barnes. If you're an ADHD woman entrepreneur, ADHD adjacent, or ADHD ish, you've come to the right place. We'll dive deep into the unique challenges you face, from the inner turmoil to the outer obstacles. We'll blend neuroscience, IFS, and somatic healing and explore practical strategies to help you navigate the world of entrepreneurship with ADHD with greater ease and effectiveness. I'm glad you're here. Hey, it's Jen. I'm so glad you're here. So lately, I've been noticing a lot of my therapy clients and some of my coaching clients struggle with doing the things that would actually help them feel better, that would actually help their ADHD, help other types of neurodivergence, help anxiety, help depression, help coping with everything going on in the world right now. And if this is you, you're not alone. I'm sure that even people who do not have ADHD or who are not autistic are struggling with this too. It's something I've witnessed over the course of my career in the field of mental health. But even when I was an actuary and I was a group fitness instructor, I often would hear how hard it was for people to get themselves to do things like exercise and eat nutritious foods. So if this is you, you're definitely not alone. And I want to talk about how to overcome this with ADHD because with ADHD, we do have some unique challenges that can make it harder for us to do stuff, but that doesn't mean we can't. And a lot of times people are like, oh, I have ADHD, I can't, right? And I know that's not you if you're listening, or I suspect it's not you, because don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that it's easy with ADHD or that it's always fun. It's just that we can do the things that we choose to prioritize in life. And that prioritization is key. So while we have these struggles getting ourselves to do stuff, it can be hard. What's harder is not doing it and then continuing to struggle and suffer, both in the present, but also in the future. And I get it with ADHD. A lot of times we have two times and it's now and not now. So I get it can be hard to be concerned about your future self. Fortunately for me, I'm very concerned about my future self because I hate being uncomfortable. And so I tend to avoid discomfort at all costs in the future, which allows me greater ease with doing things now. But if that's not you, we're going to talk about how to help you do these things so that you're both more comfortable now and your future self will thank you. So, as we talk about this, it reminds me of a conversation I had with my doctor this week. And we were talking about perimenopause and how grateful I was for my 25-year-old self and really even my 16-year-old self for being so active and taking care of my body in ways because it's made my perimenopause easier. And she was like, yeah, it's really hard to get people motivated to do that. So I've been thinking about this a lot. And in doing so, I've been reminded of a sign my dentist had when I was a kid, right? Like back in the day, you had to sit there and sit with fluoride on your mouth with those cotton, I don't know, tubes. They weren't tubes, but like strips of cotton rolls. I don't know. Anyway, and that metal thing, you'd sit there while the fluoride sat on your teeth, right? And sometimes they'd bring in a movie, but a lot of times I would look at the things that were on the walls and on the ceiling because they put posters on the ceiling for you to notice. And one of them said, you don't have to floss all your teeth, just the ones you want to keep. And that hit me hard as a kid, and I was like, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense. I don't wanna lose my teeth." So I got better at flossing at a very young age. And while we're not talking about dental care today, that sign brings up a good point. You don't have to do any of this ADHD care. You don't have to do any of your body care, really, any of it. It's just that when you don't, it can create problems later and you have the choice. And you might be thinking, but Jen, my schedule's so busy. I really don't have the choice. Listen, I get it. We all have super busy schedules. All of us do. And it's a matter of just deciding what your priority is. So for me, health and wellness is of utmost priority to me. So that made it easier for me to prioritize things like exercise and meditation and eating nutrient dense food. So I get it. If that's not a priority for you, that might be harder. However, you may notice, especially as you're hitting your 40s, that as you're hitting your 40s, if you haven't done a lot to care for yourself yet, because it just felt like too much, which I totally get, no judgment, you may be noticing some pains and some difficulty. And that's not uncommon. I get it. But that's your body's way of saying, yoo-hoo, take care of me. And there are ways that we can help you do that. But also with your ADHD, there are ways to ease your ADHD traits so that they're not so hard. And I'm not saying that we can cure ADHD. There is not a known cure for ADHD at this time in history, 2025. But what we can do is learn things and then do the things that we learn to ease the symptoms or traits of ADHD so our life doesn't feel so freaking difficult every moment of every day. So, before we get into how to get ourselves to do ADHD care, because that's what I really want to focus on today. Um, because chances are, as I share what I mean by ADHD care, you'll be like, oh, yeah, yeah. So I want to talk about that briefly, but then we'll focus more on how do you get yourself to do this? And I'm actually going to share something that I've never shared before and that a lot of people don't talk about. In fact, I've never heard someone talk about this on a podcast. So I'm really excited to share this technique. Um, but first, before we start unpacking what ADHD care is, I want to name that ADHD care is going to vary during different phases of your life, depending on what you're going through at any given moment. I think back to my 20s and 30s as compared to my 40s and then now in my 50s. Hard to believe. And so much has changed. So much has changed in my body and my life and on a global scale and even what we know, right? There were things that we didn't know back in my 20s, which was, oh my God, 30 years ago now. Some of my 20s were. So much changes over time. And so how you care for your ADHD will likely change over time too. Not to mention that our brains love novelty. So changing things up every once in a while is something that can help us stay on track. And there's ways to change up things without having to stop doing the ADHD care, right? Like, real quick, I have consistently exercised 6 days a week with a couple exceptions, but 6 days a week since I was 18 years old in college, which is pretty awesome being 51. And over the years, I have not done the same workouts. Like, that would be for 33 years, I've not done the same workouts. They've shifted over time. And even in the last year, they've shifted. So there are ways to shift how you do something versus shifting what you do, because the what is probably the things that are going to help the most. And we'll get into that. So essentially, it's not only okay that your ADHD care evolves over the course of your life, but actually necessary. Also, ADHD care may look different from one person to the next. So, like, if there's someone who really struggles with ADHD, with hyperactivity, it might be that daily movement is the priority, right? Like it is for me. Whereas if you're someone who notices more emotional reactivity, mindfulness and journaling may be your go-to strategies that you really prioritize over other ADHD care. So just keep this in mind as we're shifting into what ADHD care is, because you don't have to do every single one of these things all the time. I do at this point because they're just have become habits and they help me. But I spend more time on certain tasks or certain types of care depending on what's going on with my ADHD at any given point in my life. So just know that this will shift over the course of your life, but it's also going to be different from other people around you. Okay, so what is ADHD care? ADHD care involves anything you do to help your ADHD brain. This could be daily movement. It could be journaling or what I like to call brain dump journaling. It could be a mindfulness or meditation practices or mind body practices like yoga or qigong. It could be focusing on eating nutrient dense foods, including making sure you get protein at every meal. It might be getting that 8 to 9, 9.5 hours of sleep, keeping a daily win journal so you celebrate your wins, right? Can help with self worth. It might be planning every day in a way that considers both your ADHD and your energy level for that day, right? Some days you have more energy than others, more ability to focus than others, but also identifying actual priorities versus all the extra stuff. ADHD care might also be meeting with a therapist or a coach who really gets ADHD. So, as I say these things, you're probably like, yes, Jen, I already know. I've already heard this. And maybe you've heard it from me that these things can help your ADHD brain. So, in this episode, I'm not going to unpack how each of those things helps your ADHD brain as the focus, but you probably know how these things help your brain and probably even your physical health. You probably had doctors talk to you about some of these practices as well. But if you're listening to this, what may be hard is getting yourself to do these things that you know or have been told will help your ADHD. And I get it. We all have a lot on our plates right now, both as women, but also as ADHDers, with our tendency to struggle with taking on too many things, both because of our time blindness. So we don't realize how long things are going to actually take. We're like, oh, I can do that real quick. And then 4 hours later, we're like, oh, shoot. But also because we can have a hard time saying no to people out of fear of criticism, rejection, them being mad at us, or some other negative consequence. And so a lot of times we say yes and we overpile our plates. So I get it. It can be hard to prioritize your ADHD care. So as we get into this, I'm going to walk you through different pieces of how to be able to prioritize it. But first, it's important that you lean in and get curious about your intention for doing a said practice. Like, what are you hoping will be different if you do this thing? So, do you want to be able to direct your attention and sustain your focus? Do you want to lower your hyperactivity and fidget less? Maybe you want to manage your feelings with less reactivity or be able to start and complete tasks without waiting for procrastination anxiety to take over, right? Perhaps you want to lift your mood. So notice what comes up for you as I share this. It may be like that you take some time right now or later to journal about what are your intentions for wanting to try something new. But if you do it now, hit pause on the recording, but make sure you come back because I'm actually going to share this really cool tool as part of the next step. So come back if you're pausing it. So at any rate, we'll keep going and talk about once you know why you want to do something, you understand your intention or motivation for it, you can use a tool from motivational interviewing called the decisional balance. So, this tool is going to help make it clear both why you want to do it, what will happen if you don't do it, but also some sneaky underlying hidden reasons why you're not. So, what you're going to do to do the decisional balance is draw a box, like a square, on a piece of paper, and then draw a cross so that you're making 4 boxes inside the square that you just drew. And then on the left-hand side, for each row, title it doing the thing. So it could be mindfulness practice daily or exercise 30 minutes daily. And then put not doing the thing. So not exercising, not doing mindfulness, not paying attention to the food that you're eating. And then at the top, the columns, like the column headings, write the good things. And you can put good in quotes if you want to, because I know good is relative. And then not so good things. So those will be your 2 columns. And then what you do is you fill in the different boxes. So it's usually easiest to start with the good things of doing the thing, right? That top left box. And fill that in. What are the good things about, let's say you're going to start to do a mindfulness practice. And so perhaps you're trying to focus better because we know with ADHD, there's been studies done that mindfulness meditation can actually improve our ability to focus. We know it grows the part of the brain that pays attention in the ADHD brain as well as non ADHD brains. So is your intention to focus better? Maybe you are trying to be less reactive because mindfulness can create space between the stimuli and the response. And so, if you are trying to be less reactive, perhaps that is one of the benefits that you are hoping to see, like one of the good things. Maybe you want to be more self aware. Certainly, mindfulness meditation does that. Maybe you want to be more connected to your body. It can also help with that. So, list out in that top left box all the good things that will come if you do the thing. That's basically your intention for it, which you kind of already just figured out. Then below that, in the box that is says the not or the good things about not doing the mindfulness meditation or whatever task you decide. Write out the things that will not be so good if you do this. For example, you may have to give up time spent on something else. I mean, you're going to have to give up time spent on something else because you still only have 24 hours in a day. And whether that's less time on social media the night before and then going to bed early and you don't like to go to bed early, or whether it's, it might be hard because you have kids and so you'll be interrupted. So that's not so great about it. And that might be frustrating. Write down all the not so good things about doing the thing. Those are the sneaky underlying things that are keeping you from doing it. And then in the right column, go to the bottom, so the far right bottom box, where it's the not so good things about not doing the thing. These are the struggles that you're having now, like struggling to focus, struggling to not be so reactive. You want to stop yelling at your kids so much, right? Because if you're less reactive, you'll be less likely to yell at your kids. But if you don't do it, you'll keep yelling at your kids as much as you do, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying it's bad to never yell at your kid. I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's possible to never yell at your kids. I get it. It can be hard. It's just that if you're doing it more than you really want to, um, I think that's something you put there, right? So write out those things that you're struggling with now that wouldn't change if you don't do this practice, which in this case, we're using mindfulness as the example. And then once you've done that, go to the top box of the not so good things of doing the task. And this will be similar to the good things about not doing it. But what are the not good things about doing it? Well, like I said, you may have to get up earlier. So then you may have to go to bed earlier and you may miss out on something else. But get really clear on what will happen, like the hard parts of doing this thing. Because again, those are some of the sneaky reasons why you've been struggling to get yourself to do it. Those are the things we call secondary gains. And secondary gains are often outside of our awareness, right? So it's like not something you're conscious of until we do something like this. And Carl Jung says, until we make the conscious, we'll keep, I don't know, behaving the way we behave. I'm botching the quote. And then we'll call it fate, right? Because we won't know what's guiding us. So this is a way to start to make the unconscious subconscious. So, all right. So do that. And if you need to pause, you're welcome to pause, but then make sure you come back because we're going to share a little bit more about how to really make this happen. So, if you didn't pause or if you're back, I'm glad you're here. And I just want to say, know that anytime you change your behavior or your routine, you will likely be giving up something else, probably something that you've been enjoying to some degree. So, number one, start small. This is why everyone says take small steps. With ADHD, we have these all or nothing brains. So we're like, I'm going to do this and I'm gonna exercise an hour and a half a day, 7 days a week, right? Like, it's just not going to happen starting out. That's why our gyms are full on January 2nd and empty by March 15th because, well, they're not completely empty. There's those of us who go consistently, right? But like people who are just starting out really struggle because it's like as hard as they can and then they burn out because it's such a jolt to your life when you go all out right away and it's like too disruptive so that then you go back because it's like, oh my god, that didn't work. Well, of course it didn't work because you went too fast. So start small. If you're going to start a mindfulness practice, start with 1 minute a day. Anyone can find 1 minute a day to do a mindfulness practice. For real. Anyone can do 1 minute a day. You could even just do the present moment check-in that I talk about, which is pause and notice any body sensations that are coming up for you. And then after you notice that, notice any emotions that you're experiencing. And then last but not least, notice your thoughts. Are they moving or still? Are they moving quickly or slowly? And are they about the past and the future, or are they about the present moment? And just let yourself notice. Like, that's a nice, quick, I call it the stoplight, present moment check in because you could do it at a stoplight, right? Just make sure you're still attending to traffic um, and keep your foot on the brake. But there are lots of ways you can just do 1 minute. Or if you're going to start exercising and you've never exercised in your life, try like a 5 minute walk around the block. Or let's say you want to work out at a gym, just practice driving yourself to the gym after work or before work every morning. Go in, sit down, and then drink a sip of water or something, have a positive experience, get up and leave. Because just the habit of going is already a disruption to your schedule. And at this point, you're training the habit. So just remember at the beginning of this, it's essential that you go slow so that you're not disrupting your life so much that parts of you are like, oh no, we're not doing that. That sucked. Right? Because you are going to give something up. It will be uncomfortable when you make change. But to me, it's more uncomfortable to stay in the pain doing things the way you've been doing them. So try to make it as least disruptive as possible by starting small and then build up the habit so that over time it will seem like no big deal. You've probably heard me talk about my morning self-love ritual. That didn't start out with all those pieces. It didn't start out with me doing my gratitude journal and then doing some spiritual reading and then breath work and then a meditation and then my oracle card reading and then my exercise and then some yoga. Like, it didn't start with all of that. It started with regular exercise. And then I can't remember if the gratitude journal or meditation came first. I think probably gratitude journal and then mindfulness meditation was when I was running and eventually teaching indoor cycling. And then eventually seated meditation. Yoga didn't come till I was in my 30s. So it like everything builds up over time. So give yourself some grace and build up slowly. The other reality that is important to face is that you'll likely need to take a serious look at how you're spending your time, especially if you catch yourself saying, I don't have time for that. It's not that you don't have time. We all have the same 24 hours. It's that you're choosing to spend your time differently. And I get it. Listen, if you've got a newborn and you're barely sleeping at night, you may truly not have time to move your body. You may truly not have time to do mindfulness, right? But even as they get a little bit older, you could take 5 minutes for yourself. It's not a lot. It's not fantastic. And let me be clear, I'm not telling you you have to take 10 minutes for yourself or 5 minutes for yourself. But if it's a priority to you, you could do that. You could even take a half hour. I've known moms who exercise soon after, once the healing is done after birth, right? After labor and delivery. So it is something you can do. It's just a matter of how you want to prioritize things. And that is something only you can decide. But I got to tell you, even when I look at my own life, especially in the last couple of weeks, oh my gosh, I've gotten into a pattern of doom scrolling again because I turned off my do not disturb from 8:30 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I had access to social media. And yeah, my app screen then comes on, but I'm able to bypass it because I'm so tired. Whereas if I have my do not disturb on, then I can't even access it because then screen then doesn't, you don't get the notification to get into your apps. But I made the mistake of turning that off to do something and forgetting to turn it back on. So I've been in a pattern of doom scrolling. And so the result then is I'm more tired and I need more sleep. And then I sleep in. And then instead of getting to write all 3 pages of my morning pages or brain dump journaling, I'm doing about one, which fine, at least I'm doing something, but I know it would help me if I did more. So in order to go back to what I usually do, I need to stop being on my phone at night. And I gotta believe there's stuff like that you're doing that is just not productive. And I'm not saying that if there's something that truly relaxes you, I'm not saying you can't do that. But I guess I would question if doom scrolling is actually rejuvenating you. I know that screens definitely do not rejuvenate me. I know this because I unplugged my TV in May of 2024 and have barely watched any TV. But last week, I ended up also watching some Harry Potter just to deal with some stress. And it was great, but it did not actually relax me the way I thought it would. I felt, and I love Harry Potter, which don't get me wrong, J.K. Rowling, I've got issues with where she stands on trans folks and uh, other folks who identify in the queer community. But I usually find the show relaxing to me. And it wasn't. And I think it's because the screen. Because when I went back to my reading every night instead of watching the film, I already felt more regulated in my body. So it's something to think about, right? Really notice what is actually rejuvenating. I I gotta say, can all but guarantee that binge watching something is probably not regulating your nervous system, unless you are laughing hilariously like belly laughs for most of it, because that will help regulate your nervous system. So there's that. All right. So, like I said, it's probably unpopular, but you're going to need to take a look at what you're doing to make time for this new thing and deprioritize something that you don't value as much. And you could even do the decisional balance that we already talked about with this thing that you're going to deprioritize. Like I could do that with watching Harry Potter after work, right? Or after I eat dinner, whatever. I could do that. I could say, what are the good things about that? What are the not so good things, right? So you get the idea. Okay. Before we sign off, I just want to say, I get it. You're not always going to feel like doing your ADHD care. You're not always going to feel like doing the thing. And unless you're sick or injured or in some kind of crisis, do it anyway. Do it anyway with a focus on remembering that you will feel better after and that this is a way you're showing love to yourself. As someone who's exercised consistently from my mid-teens, I can tell you that I don't know what percent, maybe I like movement and exercise. I grew up moving my body with dance and soccer and softball and stuff like that. So I like moving my body, but I will say when I was younger, it was probably only about 20% of the time that I didn't feel like it, maybe only 10%. But now at 51, it's more like 30 or 40% of the time I don't actually feel like exercising in the morning. But I still do it because I know how much better I'll feel after. So if you can recognize that and just say like, "Yep, don't feel like it, but you know what? I'm just going to do 5 minutes then." Because 5 minutes is better than nothing. It keeps up the habit and I'll feel better after. And sometimes you'll keep going even after that 5 minutes. Because here's the thing, there's always going to be reasons to not do your ADHD care. Always reasons. I have reasons every day. And Nothing will change with regards to your ADHD and how it shows up for you if you don't do it anyway. Know that I say this with love and compassion in my heart because I know how hard it is. I've had those struggles, but I've also, over my 25 years in the field of mental health, worked with people on changing their behavior. And before that, as a group fitness instructor, alongside being an actuary. So I get how hard it is. And my heart is with you as you journey through this. But I also want to share just a little push that if you don't do anything, nothing will change. Thank you so much for being here. If something resonated with you, I would love it if you'd hit like if you're watching this on YouTube or follow my podcast, subscribe to my podcast. I'd love to have you back and be sure to share it too. The more you share this, the more you comment and engage with it, the more people that will see this, and then the more people I can help. So thank you so much for being here. Take care.